Hello, everyone, and welcome to Automate Live. My name's Jim Beretta, and I'm here with a dear friend, Mr. Joe Gemma. And Joe, we've known each other forever, it seems, and worked together a lot at ATS Automation, but you are working with Wasion Machine now, and before we get to Wasion, I'd like maybe for you to tell a little bit about who Joe Gemma is and what have you been doing the last little while, and you've been president of a bunch of companies. Tell our audience a little bit about that.
Jim, first, thanks for having me here. I appreciate taking some time with me and giving us an opportunity to talk a little bit about the industry. I have to say, first, my passion is our industry. So a good part of my career I spent, besides our business activities, working with the A3, the Association, RIA, IFR, the International Federation of Robotics, because I'm passionate about what we do. As far as a career, I spent, as you say, part of my career with Stoibli, leading that organization, KUKA leading that organization. I moved into the robotics integration side. So Wasion, as you indicated, it's more of an integration company. There are three verticals in the business. One of them is integration. So that's where I started in the industry many years ago, working with ATS in that space, and now in that space from the other side of the fence, so to speak.
That's great. And can you tell us a little bit about Wasion? You mentioned that there's three verticals at Wasion.
Sure. So it actually started in a vertical that makes machines for tube forming and end of tube forming, and we still make those machines today. In fact, in that space, narrow space, but in that space, it's like saying Kleenex and facial tissue. It's very well known in that space. From there, we also have a machining division, fairly large machine, probably the largest machine shop vertical in the upper Midwest. We're out of the Toledo area. And then the third vertical is the automation group. And we have two groups there up in Toledo, outside Toledo, Ohio, and Wasion, and then in Greenville, South Carolina, which is McAllister Design and Automation, which we acquired as part of our group, building out our portfolio about a year ago now, actually.
And your love, of course, is building complex machines and doing big projects, I assume.
Correct. There's every integrator has a sweet spot. We are across several business areas. So some of the traditional ones for sure, both applications and industries, right? So there's the industries, automotive, electronics, some of those medical device, but there are certainly some new industries that we're working in, and more recently, and partly because of some of the challenges, is construction. So that whole space is really changing, a very dynamic environment for them. For some of the problems everybody else is facing, workforce and having the workforce availability. So they're looking at automation technologies to improve their process throughput, et cetera, and then the reshoring is impacting that also.
Yeah, that's a very exciting part, and I'd love to talk to you about that in another place. But what are some of the motivators for companies to use automation now?
Great question. Certainly, you'll hear probably some of the other guests here. The workforce is certainly still a big challenge,
Sure.
and that's really not going to go away, to be fair. The aging population, the decreasing population, even before the pandemic, that was very relevant. In the pandemic, more people retired out of the space, so that's a big driver. Also, the technology available is today, the merging of those technologies, connectivity of technologies, allowing a lot of more information availability, so doing that, and then small and medium-sized companies, because of the capabilities of technology, are exploring that. So that's driving a lot of automation. And companies that never really looked at automation in the past, because of some of these drivers, decreasing population, et cetera, are saying our solution to do that is automation. And then productivity. People are looking to get more productivity, better quality, and automation helps drive that.
And I think you're right about the quality. It's such a thing we don't talk enough about, but you reduce waste, you make better products. Can you tell the audience a little bit about some of the machines that you're building at Wasion?
Yeah, so we tend to be, a lot of general industry integrators get verticals they work in maybe too, but we tend to be an assembly and test type of integration.
Yep.
So while we can't talk about specific customers, we could talk about technology. So electronics industry, assembling components for that, modules, and that's actually a key thing. More and more modularity of what people are looking for, so they can scale more easily around the modularity strategies. So we're doing that, assemblies. And then again, some big material handling, because ergonomics is still a problem. And with less people, instead of trying to pick something up with one, you have one assisting with technology to be able to move materials around. So it's gone even beyond the assembly and test. Test is still a big part of it. We talked about the quality component of that. But we do more assembly. But again, across all different industries, pretty varied.
And are you, and I'm laughing at myself, I'm going to ask you this question because what robots are you working with at Stoibli? Are you robot agnostic? Because of course you've done work with Stoibli and KUKA and all kinds of other robot brands.
So first I'll talk about style. So we use 6-axis, we use Scaras,
Yep.
we certainly use Deltas. So it's across all those platforms.
Yes.
As far as product, we do a lot with Fanuc. Fanuc's been a great partner. When I talked about Wasion getting into the integration as that vertical, Fanuc was that first partner. It stepped up with our organization to help us move into that area and helped us in that as far as understanding that technology 40 years ago, whatever it was, a long time ago, but they helped us into that space. So we've been very loyal. But we do work with other integrators, other products, so we are a systems integrator. And one interesting thing along those lines is because I mentioned the technology types, so Scara, Delta, et cetera. More and more we are seeing more utilization around a collaborative environment or collaborative applications of robots.
Nice to hear.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see even walking around the show, and hopefully people have had that opportunity. If you haven't walked around the show, there's more and more of that, and we're seeing that in more applications because there's less people, but we still need people in that creative part of the aspect. So working together with robots, and then the third part of that, and I don't want to belabor this too long, but collaboration of robot and mobile platforms. And we're definitely seeing more of that, and we can talk more about that. But I think that's another disruption that's having a benefit to manufacturing.
And you're doing a lot of work in machine vision as well?
Absolutely. Another good point. Thanks for asking it. It's a really interesting thing because not so long ago, certainly 10 years ago, vision was a small part of utilization and automation. I never did a study to see what percentage, but it was in the 10 to 15% of the automation systems had vision. Today, it's almost completely reversed. I'd say it's probably 80 to 90% of the applications we work on have some type of vision. It can be inspection, it could be quality, it could be making sure that the right part is in the right place at the right time, and data collection. And that's another 2D printing, 2D vision, 3D vision. So the technology available around that is not a black art anymore. So we're really using that technology more and more across almost every application we're putting out.
So along with vision, data is a really important part. And are you having this conversation with a lot of your clients about what their data needs are and their connectivity and their AI?
Well, the cycle of innovation is accelerating dramatically. In fact, today Barbara said something about the change is constant today. I'd say it's constant and accelerating. It's almost faster than it's ever been. And vision and connectivity, information, AI is certainly having a play. More and more companies are asking about that and asking us, how can we get this data? How do we use the data, the good data, to really make live decisions? The digital twin, Barbara talked about that earlier today too, and the digital twin impact. So we are getting more companies asking about that. Even the demo we're showing here, we're actually using live AI and machine learning in what could be a real world mini factory application. Just more and more people are asking about collecting that data, and I like to say good data because big data doesn't really help you, but good data can.
So what are some of the big, stepping back a little bit, and I love your comment about all of these robot companies putting a lot of money and time and engineering into being very creative, and I don't think we've ever seen this in our industry. We've seen new robots, but now there's lots of new robots. So what are some of the big challenges in the robot industry that you see from your perspective?
I think for the industry, it's two big things. One, the customer base wants to see interoperability.
Yep.
And that's still a big challenge that we have to face. Our cell phones can work with any cell phone, right? And yet this robot might have a really good capability, but I always use this other type of robot, so can you make this other robot work in that environment? Or the platform. And at least the platforms actually started working in the area. I think we're gonna that's a big challenge for our industry, trying to move that direction, try to have that interoperability across the platforms, and it's coming. There's tools that are out there helping that happen. The second one is product lifecycle management. And that's falling more on the system integrator side than anything else. Because we now have to think differently about what we're building for our customers to have more, I'll say, scalability, adaptability, flexibility. Right. Demand in the market's changing so rapidly that they can't say, well, just build this system to do this, because it will change more rapidly at pretty much every product platform. So we have to think differently how we put that together, how we access information for them, how we support that even as a service model.
And so that actually is a good segue into the kind of the next challenge for machine builders. You're right, we have to actually start thinking almost ahead of our customers, and because everything is changing. Do you see any other challenges? Like I see, I think we need more machine builders, right, in the industry. Do you have any other thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing again was the PLM that I talked about. I think that's our biggest challenge. That changing. In conjunction with that, it's also the software, right? Because many of these companies now, because software capabilities are changing, getting the staff. So that's a big challenge for us to be able to address what that might mean. Collecting information. You know, in the past, the top management of a company would get reports on a monthly basis, et cetera. Well, that doesn't work anymore. We really want it instantly. And getting that information, understanding it. Now, I think that visualization, that conceptualization capability is there, but hasn't in the past sat with us as integrators. And more they're asking for us to be able to make that available. I want to see live what my OEE is, what my availability is, what the quality of that performance. And I want to see it live. I don't want to wait till that monthly report. And that's falling more and more as an integrator, so that software management structure of that, we really have to take that more as part of our responsibility, as opposed to the past was more the mechanical strategies around getting throughput in processes.
Well, that's great. And can you, do you know your booth number, Joe?
I do.
What's your booth number? And what's happening? So you mentioned you've got AI in your booth, you've got automated, an AGV, and you've got an assembly system there. What else you got going on there?
So first, the booth number is 4439. Please stop and visit. Say hello. So the interesting thing about what our team, and I don't want to take credit for it, is they did all the work. But what they did was, we talk about some of these buzzwords: mobile platforms, collaborative, application robots, machine learning, AI, data collection. What they did was they put together kind of a little mini factory, and so we had a robot mounted on a platform going from one cell to another, so operators don't have to carry multiple parts back and forth, productivity, loss, efficiency, time. And in the cells, so we have the mobile platform, the robot mounted to that, that's interfacing with that process, both cells, so it's adaptable to both cells, and in both cells we're collecting data, we're doing real-time machine learning.
Yes.
So some of the components don't pass, we fail them, they can't be reused in the system. We actually deliberately put some, I'll say, negative parts in the system, so we make sure the system's checking and following as it should to do that machine learning. Said, okay, I recognize now this part doesn't pass any longer, it's been scratched or whatever, we're right, and so looking for that as a condition going forward. If I see this kind of scratch, don't let it go through. So it's using all those buzzwords, but in a real kind of environment, so customer could see, okay, I can see how I could really apply this rather than just being a buzzword or some white paper I read about it. I could actually apply it.
Thank you, Joe, and thanks for coming on to Automate Live today. And how can people reach out to you? I mean, I think everybody knows you, but just in case for those few people that don't know Joe Gemma.
Well, I don't think everybody knows, because yesterday I met Tom Izzo, he didn't know me. Anyway, but thanks for that. So please, if you want to reach out to me, feel free. LinkedIn, I try to stay on LinkedIn and very active, so reach out to me on LinkedIn. And if you want, it's jgemma@wasionmachine.com. But certainly look for me on LinkedIn. And again, Jim, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it.
Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks.